Welcome, and thanks so much for joining this evening. I really appreciate you taking up the time, being here live, and then also to those of you who will be listening on the recording. Thank you and welcome. My name is Madhuri, and I would love to start off this evening by just taking us through a short settling practice so we can all gather our energies and come in and be in this space together, whether it is in current time or in future time, that we all join together for a few moments. So please find a place where your spine is long, where you can sit comfortably, whether that's on a chair, on the floor, it doesn't matter at all, just where you can feel good. Long spine, but not rigid. You can roll the shoulders back and down, rest the hands in the lap or on your thighs. And simply begin by closing your eyes and taking the focus inwards. And catch what happens in the initial stages of this process. Where does your focus go as you turn inside? What calls your attention? Begin to connect with feeling your base of support, the legs, the pelvis. Feeling the details of the connection of the earth and the body and the earth. And allow yourself to yield the body weight to settle into the support. And feel any places that you may be resisting or even just holding yourself. If you come across a place like that within the physical body, exhale, soften, relax. And checking in, noticing how you're feeling mentally and emotionally. The accumulation of the day, the week, the month, the year, the decade, the life. Bringing you to this very moment. Bringing us to this moment in time where we connect and converge. For this beautiful moment in time that will never be again. We'll never get this back. And then deep gratitude for this beauty, this grace, and these magical moments, however benign and mundane they may appear. And feeling into the space of the heart. It's in the heart that we heal. We don't heal from the mind. We don't heal from our logic, our rational mind. But dipping into the heart space, Hridaya Kash. And feeling the space. Whether it's a little bit of space that you can sense today or it's expansive. No judgment. Just feel. And visualize a jyoti, a candle flame, right at the center of your heart. See that flame luminous and unwavering. That symbol of the consciousness within. That symbol of the radiance of your being. Here and now, not when you change something or improve something, but in this moment, your perfection. Allow your whole body to melt around this jyoti at your heart. And see the light from the center of your heart moving outwards, spreading through the whole body. Visualize that light moving out beyond the body to surround the Annamaya Kosha. But imagine, feel, see that light filling, dancing with Pranamaya Kosha. Vijnanamaya Kosha. Nandamaya Kosha. All of the sheaths, all of the veils, the layers of who we are, existing simultaneously and dancing together. No separation from our physical body, to the bliss body, to the pranic body, to our intuitive body. But feel which of those koshas, which of those dimensions, if you will, you're more connected to right now. Maybe it's the physical. Maybe you're very much just feeling this density, the solidity, the space that the body takes up. Bring your focus back to the heart and set a sankalpa. It may just be one word, but what you would like to get out of our time together, or how you would like to feel at the end of our time. And plant the seed of that sankalpa at your heart. With each and every breath, at watering the seed, expanding the consciousness and aligning the energies of intention with the manifestation of what is. Take 3 deep breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Two more. And final breath. And rubbing the palms together. Feeling the heat that you've generated between the hands, placing the hands over the eyes, looking out into the warm darkness. Relaxing the nervous system through this practice of palming. And when you feel ready, just go on and slowly open the eyes. You can move the body as you need, as you feel comfortable. Okay, so welcome. Doesn't that feel nice just to integrate everywhere we've been coming from, even though we're in our own little kind of pods, in our own computer or phone that we're on? There's a crossover. There's an impact of all of our energies on a really subtle level, but however we're showing up together this evening is felt through all of us and from all of us. So let me just quickly go over what we're going to sort of dive into this evening and give you a framework for the night. We're going to really discuss and tease out this topic of how, as yoga teachers, do we really walk our talk? And I want to emphasize that that's not about being perfect. And this is, I think, where things can get really tricky in the yoga world, as yoga being a spiritual practice and us going into this profession of yoga teaching. What does that really mean? Where we have our lives, we have our messiness, we have our kids, our families, our relationships, we have all sorts of challenges in our life and problems and baggage that we're all sorting through as individuals and having to show up as yoga teachers in front of students, holding space for students. How do we juggle that and really still live in an authentic way where we feel good about ourselves and aligned, and not expecting ourselves to have it all together before we have something of value to offer? It's a bit of a dance, and that's really the focus of what we're going to be speaking of today. We're going to talk about what's getting in the way of feeling 100% authentic in that when you're teaching, and how to dissolve fear and anxiety around that not being good enough demon or shadow aspect that can pop up, I think, for almost all of us. Definitely all of the yoga teachers that I've been training through my Ayurvedic yoga training, this is a topic that comes up. And also through my clients that I see through Ayurveda and bioenergy healing, when we start to peel back the layers of what's the blockage, where are their blockages, there's often always that seed of somehow not good enough or not deserving that can really affect and impact so much of our life at a subconscious level. It's not necessarily conscious at all, and that's why it's so sticky and so tricky. So that's what we're going to move through this evening. I'd like to just take a couple of moments to give you a little bit about my background for those of you who don't know me, and give you a little bit about my history as to sort of why I'm speaking about this and what got me to this point in time in my life. And obviously there's a lot more to the journey, but I'll feed you some highlights so that you get a sense of where I'm coming from. I came to yoga originally through a dance injury, and I really wanted to move and found yoga. And in that, I quite quickly discovered and was inspired by the more subtle esoteric aspects of yoga, because I realized that I could train my body, and sure, I would get injured, but if I really worked at it, and most of us, we can train our body to do many, many things. But I saw even at that time, and this was in my very early 20s, that the mind was a little bit of a slippery serpent, and that there was a lot more depth to exploring the mind and the emotions. And I knew at that point in time that this is where the focus has to be, because my mind is going to be with me forever. My body's going to change. It's going to get injured. It's going to get sick. But my mind, learning how to work with and heighten the awareness and have some tools, was what I got really excited about with yoga. So I ended up moving to India and living at the Bihar School of Yoga, which was the world's first yoga university. It's essentially an ashram, and I did a yogic studies course there for 6 months, and it was very rigorous and very intense, and truly at the essence of it was tons of karma yoga, so tons of selfless service. It was not glamorous at all, and it was a lot of hard work and some training, very little asana, to be honest, especially from what we know in yoga teacher training programs in the West. And I taught a yoga teacher training program for 7 years. And the emphasis on asana here, as we know, is the main component. In India, it was just the tip of the iceberg. And that really was eye-opening to me at that time as well, to be like, wow, there's such a discrepancy in the focus here. In India, it was definitely, the emphasis was on the spiritual aspect, the chanting, the meditation, the yoga nidra, the karma yoga, the bhakti yoga, the gyan yoga. And here in the West, it was really like, let's just do asana. So that's been something within my yoga teaching career that I've had to at sometimes grapple with, and at other times dance with. Luckily, hopefully dance with more of the time, but it's something that I have definite conversation with myself around, and also with other colleagues and students. So I was there for quite some time and took many journeys back and forth to India. On one of those journeys, I got incredibly sick, which left me with a 7-year illness. And it wasn't really until I got back to Canada, where I live, that I discovered that I was very sick, that I had gone from dancing, being very athletic and being able to dance, 6-8 hours a day. And to the point in time when I got back to Canada after that journey in India, I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs. I was exhausted. It felt like someone had just pulled the plug on my energy. And through a series of tests and through lots of trips to the hospital and seeing the foreign disease specialist, they finally came up with not much, actually. They got me in to have my specialist appointment, and the doctor looked at his papers. He kind of picked them up. He's scanning them as though for the first time, and he just looked at me, said, "There's nothing we can do for you." And that was devastating at that time for the pitta aspect of my mind. It's like, just tell me what's wrong and then I'll fix it. Just tell me the problem, we'll get rid of it, and it'll be okay. It definitely wasn't that simple. But the beauty of that is what really catapulted me into studying Ayurveda. And I'm now an Ayurvedic practitioner and have been seeing clients for some years now, and have a deep love and passion for merging these two sciences and art forms together, and specifically for yoga teachers, hence why I'm here with you this evening, because I feel like Ayurveda is truly the backbone to yoga, vice versa, but we can't be yoga teachers in this day and age without understanding Ayurveda. It's just incomplete and in some way irresponsible. And maybe just ignorant until we know about it. And sooner or later, I think as we go down the path of yoga, we do stumble across Ayurveda, and vice versa. Some people come in through the Ayurveda door, and sooner or later you bump up against yoga. You can't ignore either one. How I live my life and move through the world, I don't see yoga and Ayurveda separate at all. We can talk about them that way to delineate we're talking about food here, it's Ayurveda. We're talking about asana, pranayama here, it's yoga. But I really don't even see it in that paradigm. I just feel it as one holistic, beautiful entity. There's a living life force there in it, in the yoga, in the Ayurveda, and in the dance between those two, a real wholeness. And when I even speak of yoga and Ayurveda, I'm not even personally confining those into a box of what traditionally we may look at as yoga and Ayurveda. I really feel the sense of expansion of, let's look at the essence of Ayurveda, which is science of life. So let us open and expand into inclusion and to looking beyond even what we see as yoga and Ayurveda. So lately I've been very fascinated and integrate into my trainings, looking at neuroscience, looking at quantum physics, looking at things beyond the scope of how they may have been spoken of 5,000 years ago. But when we trace it back, we can see the essence and go, these rishis and these yogis were speaking of these things even then, maybe using different language, but that's very exciting to me. So that's a little bit about me. And so I'm currently living in Vancouver, Canada. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner and a bioenergy healer and a yoga teacher trainer. And I've got my Maduri method, which essentially is a 65-hour module for teachers to teach you about Ayurveda and how to incorporate that into your classes and into your life as well. So let's dive in. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the perfection myth. You know, every time you turn on your Instagram or your Facebook, we have these images that were fed through the media, through the internet about, yogis being young, slim girls or people sitting with their spine rigid and meditating with the eyes closed. All of these ideas about yoga, about meditation, and what that is, how that's fed to us through mainstream I've noticed or I've experienced has really created this image, this persona that is unattainable and unrealistic. So as yoga teachers, here we are with this image that society's being fed, that we're being fed, that we can never live up to. So that leads into stress, whether it's conscious or unconscious, and then that sneaky little imposter syndrome that can rear its head of however that might arrive for you, whatever those voices are, I'm not good enough, I don't know enough, I don't know the terms of these postures in Sanskrit, so-and-so can do a back bend deeper than me. Wherever we go in the judgment, the comparison, it begins to, I was going to say, eat away at our ahankar, that sense of I amness. But I think what it's actually doing is shining a light on the ahankar, on that sense of ego that is in shadow. And so in a way that can be very beautiful. It can also be very destructive depending on how we relate to it. And it seems like a lot of the times it moves into that destructive phase where we're competing, where we're judging, someone's better, someone's below. And this is the beauty of this, is truly, this is our spiritual practice. So being a yoga teacher, how we are in our yoga business and in our life is really the true reflection of our spiritual practice. So I don't know about you guys, but I spend a lot of time on my computer. I'm my own friggin' secretary, like just lots of time updating websites, emailing people back. And it's not the glamorous life of a yoga teacher, which some people assume, and especially beginning yoga teachers after teaching a program for 7 years and seeing the shiny eyes of the young students getting out of their training, and they have ambitions to open yoga studios or teach yoga. And I always would say to them, like, don't quit your day job, like right away anyway. Because the reality of teaching yoga for a living, which has pretty much been my whole adult life, has been what I've been doing. It's not necessarily lucrative. There can be a lot of financial struggle, even emotional struggle, physical struggle. Years ago, I was biking. I only had a bicycle, and biking around Vancouver from yoga studio to yoga studio to yoga studio, essentially burning myself out. Getting paid $25 a class and going here, there, and everywhere. And the irony is when we really look at the yamas and niyamas, we think, what are we doing? And that's part of this, how do we walk our talk of stepping back and going, what is yoga? And what are we doing? And how can we make that work in the context of, if this is our living? Some of you, it may be your full-time career, and some of you, it may be something that you do part-time. But how can we really integrate this into valuing ourselves, valuing the profession, so that yoga teachers are getting paid enough that they're not having to strain themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, financially? All of these things are important to consider. And the longer that you've been teaching yoga, the more I'm sure you can relate to the challenges of that. It's not all peace, love, and rainbows, that's for sure. So how do we really walk our talk without having to be perfect and without putting another judgment on ourselves? So I was contemplating this week and thinking, the first thing, and this is one of the first things I learned about yoga and from my guru, was teach what you know. Don't pretend to know more. Don't teach beyond your scope of practice. Don't go to a weekend workshop and then start teaching what you learned about mudras or back bends or anything the very next day. Like, live it. Take those practices. Do these practices for years until they become part of you, part of each and every cell. There's no point in just taking something on, like putting on a shirt, and then trying to go and regurgitate that. That's not being of service as a yoga teacher, and to ourselves either. And I think that's when that imposter syndrome starts to heighten, even because we're going beyond our lived embodied experience and thinking, oh, I have to teach something spectacular, or I have to entertain, or I have to be charismatic or funny, or whatever we think we have to be as that yoga teacher at the front of the class is truly the antithesis. When we can go deep inside and understand that really what we're doing is just creating a space for our students to have their own experience. We're not needing to give students an experience, but simply craft and carve out a sacred space so that whatever that student needs to move through on that day, in that time, in that moment, they can do it without our interference, without us getting in the way or manipulating their experience. That, to me, is where yoga really begins. In that moment, in the alchemy of that sacred space, the vulnerability and rawness of both the teacher, the willingness of the student to be there, and in that magic happens. And magic isn't the fireworks or the major explosions. It can be subtle. It can be the whisper. And when we're quiet enough within ourselves as teachers, when we allow our students to have that space without having to talk the whole time, without having to go in and adjust and manipulate, then I really feel that's when the depth gets stirred and is allowed to surface and come to the top. The other thing I was contemplating was just how to be honest, vulnerable, and transparent. So it's different from showing up and, if we're having a bad day, bringing that into the space and vomiting that into the room. It's really about, how can I be raw, vulnerable, and still hold the space? I've had quite a bit of experience with this in my teaching career through different illnesses. I've had many strange health things happen. And also 2 years ago, I lost my partner, and I still had to show up and teach. And what I found was some of my deepest teaching happened in the 6 months or 9 months after he died, because I was so raw and I could still hold space. And I think partly that's training and practice, and partly that's grace. It's just opening our hearts and allowing grace to flow through us. And sometimes in our darkest moments, it's easiest to do that. We're so open that we can be the most powerful channel in those times. So it's not about having to be perfect or have everything together, but how can we really clear our vessel and be a channel? And sometimes life will do it for you and just move through you. And other times, that's the practice, that's the sadhana, to keep clearing that channel for ourselves daily. Asana, pranayama, meditation, mantra, moment-to-moment awareness of the internal, the external, and what is happening in the relationship between those two things. That is the practice. I feel like in my life right now, that has very little to actually do with asana. It's everything else and that, but everything else that happens in life along the way. So what can be helpful in that is really turning our focus to the students, and not in a doting, mothering way, but in the way of the focus is on them. And how can I hold space for them? How can that really be my role as a teacher, our role as teachers? And in a way that just takes a lot of pressure off. It's like, oh, it's not about me. It's not about a performance. This has nothing to do with performing. And that can get in the way of like our teacher persona. And then how come in life we have a different persona? Oh, and now I go and I'm a teacher. I'm a yoga teacher, and that my voice changes and my body changes. And all of a sudden I'm this. And then the moment I get out of class, our energy shifts and changes. That's the discord of the ahankar, and that's what creates friction. And I believe that's also what creates dis-ease, because there's a disconnect through the veils of the koshas, not an integration. And when we think of yoga to yoke, it is about the wholeness. It's about that coming together. So beautiful, because we just have to relax. And that, I think, can be the hardest challenge. It definitely has been in my life and my teaching, is just like, I'm not the doer. It's not me. And opening to that over and over. So what came to me this week was more ether. So in Ayurveda, we call this akash, more space in your teaching, less fire, less agni. There's too much fire. There's too much spark and charisma. I'm not talking about light and luminosity. I'm talking about fire. And when there's that excess of fire, especially in the rajasic sense, that's when we get in the way in our teaching. So the sattvic nature, that's the luminosity, but the fire burns and burns us out, burns our students out. So more space, less fire, more akash, less agni, or tejas. So how do we live in deep integrity all the while working on our own stuff? How do we live in deep integrity all the while working on our own stuff? You know, life's going to throw us some curveballs. And how do we move through our teaching in that? You know, sometimes we might have to stop teaching for a while, depending on what's happening in our life. If we really can't serve ourselves and be in service, then maybe that's time to stop or take a break, and that's okay as well. I think there's a rhythm, especially the longer we teach, there's an ebb and a flow. There's a rhythm to our teaching. We're not going to feel passionate about teaching yoga in this way, in a consistent linear way. It's organic, it ebbs, it flows, there's a lot of movement to it. And I think the question I have for you, just to contemplate for yourself right now, is what's the worst thing about saying one thing in class and then feeling like you're living something different? Like, where does that feel the worst in your body? And how do you experience that? How does that show up in your life? And this can come back down to that pesky little seed of not being good enough. Intern is really connected to scarcity mentality, to lack. And it's okay, as I'm saying these things, if you're like, oh yeah, I recognize that. I recognize these things in myself as well. But when we shed the light of consciousness upon them, they start to lose their stickiness. They start to dissolve back into that pure white light. Or we can have a better sense of humor about it, or catch ourselves in that moment and be like, there I am. There I am in the ego. I'm a slave to the ego in this moment. It's okay. It's going to happen. But how I'm relating to that happening changes over time. It will change as we deepen our sadhana and deepen our practice, and I believe really expand our heart is the essence of it. So as a yoga teacher, I believe that our job is self-love, period. As a yoga teacher, our job is self-love. We think we're going in teaching something. The students are teaching us. The students are mirroring to us. Where have we left out? Where have we not fully loved ourselves? I remember for so many years in my yoga teaching, having this voice of like, they hate it, they don't like it. You know, after class students might come up and be like, that was the best class ever. And meanwhile, through the whole class, I was thinking or feeling and all these stories in my head of, oh, they don't like it, what's going on? Oh, they don't like me. And all of that ego judgment, which can be very debilitating. At times, I wanted to walk away from teaching. I wanted to completely give up, feeling like I really needed that acknowledgement. And we don't always get it as yoga teachers, right? Students come in, you might teach the best class ever. Everyone comes in, maybe they leave right away, depending on what studio teach at. If you're teaching drop-in classes, it's not like that everywhere, but I see in Vancouver, definitely that's how a lot of yoga is being taught. It's drop-in, students come and they go, and you have very little interaction with the students. So self-love. And it's really through this energetic frequency of expanding our love that the space is purified, that container, that sattvic space is amplified, and that's where the healing of the student occurs, and of ourselves also. It's not about fancy postures. It's really about the quality of energy, the quality of vibration in which you're a conduit for. So as we raise our frequency, as we raise our vibration and allow ourselves to be that clear channel of opening, that's what students are attracted to. On one level, students might think they're going to a teacher for fancy postures, and if that's where they're at, that's great. But you need to decide what kind of teacher you want to be and where your intention is or motivation is as you move through things. So it's really about our presence, above and beyond anything. And that's really what my Ayurvedic yoga teacher training was designed to do. Yes, I take my students through Ayurveda so that they get a foundational understanding and knowledge of Ayurveda, that can be brought into our yoga teaching classes, that we're not being ignorant or irresponsible in teaching pranayama practices, asana practices that are going to vitiate, that are going to aggravate our students' injuries or illnesses, or are going to aggravate the constitution of our students depending on the time of year. You know, if it's in the middle of summer and we're living in a super hot place and we're doing all these heating, kapalbhati and vigorous practice, what are we doing? Like, what is that for? And a lot of the time it's just done because teachers don't know any better. And they just think, well, this was the practice that I learned and this is what I'm going to teach. And there's no connection to the rhythms of nature, the time of day, the time of year, the age of the people in the class. And this is what I love about Ayurveda and why I felt so compelled to create this 65-hour module program for teachers. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the program at the end and how you can study a little bit further with me if you're interested. But what I'd like to do is just take us through a very short practice. Let me just get a sip of water. So come back to a place where your spine is long, your eyes are closed. Place your hands in your lap. And I'd like you to take yourself into a 4-part breath of inhalation, hold the breath, exhalation, hold the breath. So if you'd like to start out with a count in that, then you can do so. Or if you just want to inhale, hold to a comfortable degree, exhale, hold to a comfortable degree. Doing that for a couple of rounds to get into the rhythm of inhale, kumbhak, exhale, kumbhak. Just slight breath retention, nothing straining, depending on your practice. And then exhaling your breath all the way out. And as you inhale, inhale love. Inhale the vibration, the feeling of love. As you hold your breath, acceptance. As you exhale, exhale out any smallness, any scarcity, any victim energy. And as you hold your breath again, acceptance. Inhale, love. Hold the breath, acceptance. Exhale, release smallness out of your energy field. Hold the breath, acceptance. So go on at your own pace, inhaling love. In that holding of the breath, acceptance or gratitude. Exhale anything that is no longer serving you out of your energy field. And again, holding acceptance. So carry on at your own pace. Do 2 more rounds of this practice. And then just letting go of the breath of the pranayama, letting go of the mantra of love, acceptance. And just feel any shifts within your body, mind, heart. And then slowly opening your eyes. So what is so profound is the simplicity of our practices and really just doing them. I found this with yoga and Ayurveda the same, that really all of the wisdom in the world means nothing until we integrate and embody it. And just gathering more information or more knowledge is a disservice. So how do we empty our cup, not fill it back up, so that we can just be that channel and really experience yoga, experience Ayurveda from cellular level opposed to up here. And sure, it starts that way. We study and we're trying to take in information, but the daily practice and the embodiment is key. So the last point that I would love to talk about is just that if the best way, one of the best ways that we can really walk our talk as a yoga teacher, and I honestly don't know how I would get through my life, let alone my yoga teaching, without the wisdom of Ayurveda, is to understand our prakruti and our vikruti. So the prakruti being our constitutional nature at conception, so our dosha, and then the vikruti, the current state. These are often in discrepancy, and we need to come back to the vikruti and the prakruti essentially being in alignment to feel our best. But if we don't know that, if we have no idea of what our vikruti, our current state is, and what our prakruti, our original nature is, we can be stabbing around in the dark or just trying our hardest to feel good. And you may have experienced somewhere in your yoga practice or your yoga teaching, both, you hit a plateau, or maybe you're working ease and not getting better, not seeing any improvement. And Ayurveda is really such a beautiful foundation for understanding how to live in rhythm, and so important is the dinacharya, the daily routine practices. Otherwise, we can just burn ourselves out as yoga teachers. And how ironic is that, right? The stressed out yoga teacher, the burnt out yoga teacher, the poor yoga teacher, the struggling yoga teacher. And it is so common because of the way that this career and this profession has been set up in the West. So Ayurveda helps us to support us to fulfill our dharma. And without it, we're going to struggle until we really get into that sweet spot with that understanding. So let me just leave you with a few things. If Ayurveda is completely new to you, I know for some of you it's old hat and some of you are practitioners. And what I would say, just to start, if you're brand new to Ayurveda, just start with a few very simple things. Here's the crossover too between yoga and Ayurveda, where I said I don't see the difference between the two. I feel that the very most important dinacharya, daily practice, is sankalpa. Is your intention, is your resolution. And that sankalpa is not just something that you do first thing in the morning. Oh, I said my affirmation or I said my mantra and there you go. That is something that you live and breathe. And when you notice your mind has been taking away, you come back to that. I love you. You come back to that, whatever the mantra is, so that it's not just a morning exercise and something nice you say to yourself. It's the thing that's going to be your guiding light. You live by that. You move by that. You go and lean into that until your mantra, until your sankalpa lives you. So that in those moments, you're not even paying attention, and then all of a sudden you notice that you weren't paying attention, and at that same moment you notice the repetition of the mantra going on inside your own mind without you having to consciously do it. That's the integration. That's the embodiment, is where we're living the mantra, where we're living that vibration without having to consciously do it. So that takes practice, time, and the integration of our heart there. So we go into that pure intention to help serve, to help uplift mankind, to help expand the consciousness on this planet. And through that, just let me be a vessel. And with our pure intention, whatever your intention may be for you, you live that through the practice. And then your words, your actions, it all lines up, and we don't even have to have the conversation of how do we walk our talk, because we just are. And it doesn't mean we're happy all the time, or joyful all the time, or healthy all the time even. It doesn't mean that. It means that we're okay with however we are in that moment. That however we show up for ourselves, we're going to bring more compassion to ourselves. We're going to bring more love to ourselves and not less, especially when we're feeling like crap, when we're angry, when we're feeling depressed or full of anxiety. That's when we need to bring more of the consciousness of love to ourselves. So to me, this is yoga, this is Ayurveda. And that sankalpa, that intentional living, is everything. And you can also scrape your tongue in the morning. That's way easier. And it takes like 10 seconds. So if you don't have a tongue scraper, get one. Teach your students about tongue scraping. It's something that I really feel, I don't like to live by shoulds, but I really feel like everybody should be scraping their tongues. I give them away as Christmas gifts. My parents have them. I don't know if they use them, but they've got them. Family members. This is something that we can do that is easy for people to learn. And once your students, once your family start scraping the tongue, you don't want to stop. I just recently put out a video that's on my blog. You can watch if you want a little more information about sharing that with your family and friends as well. So scrape your tongue, number one, Ayurveda. The other tip that I want to leave you with Ayurvedically is to oil the soles of your feet at night, especially if you feel that there is an excess of vata, that air and ether, those elements that can show up as stress, as dry skin, as insomnia, as constipation. Taking some oil, rubbing it into the soles of the feet at night, just slip on some old cotton socks so you don't stain your sheets. This is a beautiful way to take all that excess prana that is moving up, that is causing instability, that causing excess movement in the mind, and just pull that down. So it's helping with that apana vayu force, that downward moving energy, to ground our energy into our feet. So I like to give things out in little bite-sized digestible pieces. Start with those. Just start there. And there's so much more. Definitely, there's so much more that we can dive into with yoga, with Ayurveda, but just start there for now if that's new to you. Do your sadhana, and however that looks to you. The amount of students, even when I was teaching our 6-month yoga teacher training, and these students were given a sadhana to do, I could tell the students that were doing their sadhana and the students that weren't. It was very palpable to see the quality, how people can show up. And I don't care what your sadhana is. It's your sadhana. However that looks to you. Maybe it's an hour of chanting. Maybe that's 5 minutes of pranayama. Maybe that's a 20-minute morning asana practice. I don't know what it needs to be for you at your time in your life right now, but it does need to be consistent if you're teaching yoga. We can't be teaching and not practicing. That's really, we just can't do that. So make that your priority and that your commitment for sure. And that will be palpable. Your students will feel it, whether they're conscious of it or not, they will. So before I open up the lines, I would love to hear from any of you. I love that we're gathering as yoga teachers to have this conversation. It's been a little bit of a one-sided conversation till now, but that's why I want to open the lines so that I can hear from some of you and hear your thoughts or experiences as well. And I wanted to let you know a little bit more about my Ayurvedic yoga teacher training program that's coming up in September. And it's really a reset for your yoga teaching and also personally for your mind and your body and your life. It's, as one of my previous students, I was just teaching in Switzerland, and she said it was like a self-development program using the tools of Ayurveda. And I said, well, that's exactly what it is. We are going to talk about Ayurveda, and that's the premise of it through the yogic lens. But really what it is, we spend a big portion of it on self-mastery and mastering your life, wherever you're at with your life, of upgrading and feeling better than you're feeling right now, and having deep tools to take you to the next level of your well-being, mentally, physically, emotionally, energetically. And that's really my passion, is to say, as yoga teachers, as leaders in our community, how can we be the most inspired that we can be? Not the most fearful, not the most judgmental of ourselves or critical, but how can we really be the most uplifted and shine our light without the obstacles? And that's the essence of the training. So that starts September, 1 3-day weekend in September and 1 3-day weekend in Vancouver. So you can find out more information on my website about that program. And there's also a prerequisite course for that program that is done online. And this prerequisite course can be done as a standalone. So even if you can't do the teacher training or are not interested in the teacher training, you can still do the Ayurveda course, the Ayurveda for Real Life program. And that will give you a beautiful depth of Ayurveda that you can apply into your life. So I've created it as 7 audio modules with some handouts, and it's digestible so that you can take that information and integrate it. I'm not just throwing you tons and tons of Sanskrit, just things to memorize. It's like, I want you to get it and live it. And that's the most important thing, because that's where the transformation happens. So if either of those things are interesting to you, when you sign up by June 21st, you will get that entire online program, which is the prerequisite for the course. So if you're signing up for the teacher training, you're going to get that online program for absolutely free, my gift to you, and it has a value of $347. So that is just yours. If you don't want to do the teacher training program but would still love to do the online program, then you can register for that program by June 21st and receive 50% off. When you go through the sales page, then what you need to do is just type in the coupon code YOGA. When it comes up, coupon code YOGA, and you'll get 50% off of that online course until June 21st. And I'll send you a follow-up email with those details in here as well, or in there in the link, so that you have that information. And I think that's all I have for this moment. So I would love to hear from you. Let me just see how I can do that. I'm not sure if you can raise your hand if you have a question. Maybe what you can do is type in the chat box at the bottom if you'd like to speak, and then I can unmute you on the phone. Or you know what? That's not going to work, because some of you are on the phone. I just see phone numbers. I'm going to unmute everybody right now, and then if you have a question, an insight, comment, then just speak up. Just step forward. All right, so everyone's unmuted. If you have something you would love to share, then just step forward. Any comments? I'd love to hear about your experiences. Hi, who's that?
Oh, I'm Diana.
Diana.
Yeah, thank you so much. My pen was just going crazy writing everything down. I feel like it was so much great info.
Great.
And it all resonated. It really resonated with me because I'm in the yoga teacher training right now.
Okay.
And like I don't know if I'm going to teach or not, but what had kept me out of doing a teacher training was that perfectionistic attitude that, oh, I'm not good enough and I don't know how to do the asanas. And this is just so inspiring. So glad I've been on the call. I just also wanted to say that I lost my partner 14 years ago this year. And so I just wanted to extend to you, I don't know, I don't even know what it is. It's just I don't know what I want to say to you other than I get it. And it's like, it's a transformation. It's what's made me who I am today. And I don't know, I'm just so inspired by being on this call. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Diana, and I'm sorry for your loss as well. And I agree with you. I feel like as much as, I would do anything to change the past and how things are, I feel like because of the past and the way things are, it's really molded and shifted who I am and in my life, and even how I want to show up in life and connect with students and other teachers like yourself. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Good luck with your teacher.
And one other, thank you. Yeah, we complete in it's a 9-month immersion, and it's incredible. Britt talks exactly in similar ways, as you're speaking about, like, it's not just the asanas, and I love what you said, like, presence is the most vital, important thing. And just thank you so much. This has been so great.
You're so welcome. Are you in Britt's training right now?
I am, yes.
Well, awesome. Well, you're in very, very amazing hands, and such a amazing teacher. So
all
the best.
This was
whatever you take from that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And who knows, you might find yourself teaching at the end of that.
Say that again.
I said, who knows, you may even find yourself teaching at the end of it.
Yeah, I totally. I mean, I'm starting to believe that, and especially just being on your call and like, I have presents to give, So it's just like, it's not a performance. It's just so resonant for me. So thank you. I needed this little boost.
Whether you end up teaching yoga or not, I think we're teachers every day, right? Whoever we come in contact with, and we're also students every day. So whether you're a teacher and standing up in front of the classroom in a way is irrelevant to how you can grow and the gifts that you can also share in the world. So
absolutely.
Thanks for being here, and thanks for stepping forward with your voice.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to unmute everyone again if anyone has anything to say. Britt, are you there? I hear your lovely voice. Was that you? Does anybody
Madhuri?
Anything? Yeah.
You hear me?
Yeah, just 1 minute. What are the last 3 digits of your phone number?
Well, it's 3384 are the last 4 digits. This is Britt.
Okay, good. Yeah, just 1 second. I'm going to just mute everyone so that I can hear you better.
Muting.
Okay, I've unmuted you. Hey.
Okay, sweet. Hi.
Hi. Beautiful.
I just wanted, in light of Diana's comment, I just want to reach out and remind all of us that, I've been teaching for 20 years and 20-some years, I don't even know anymore, and the power of your voice and the power of your presence, for being a student again and again and again, is just, it's unstoppable. And I feel so blessed to know you and to walk beside you as a co-teacher and to learn from you. Every time I sit with you as a student, I learn from you, and I'm honored, and I just want to validate that and say, you know, I just love all that you share in the way that you share it, and your presence is palpable, and I'm grateful. So this is sweet for me to be a part of this, and I'm very grateful. So thank you.
And make me cry. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And you and I cry together marvelously and laugh together immensely. And so that's, I mean, is there no other way?
It's so true.
Or any other way?
Yeah.
Big blessings and thank you.
Yeah.
Just wanted to reach out. And anybody who's out there who's on the fence, I say this one is well worthwhile. And I say that about very few in the industry. So I know we played around with that today on Facebook, but I really mean it. I do not take teachers and lessons lightly, and you are creme de la creme, and I love you, and I feel as though what you offer and the way in which you offer it is transparent and real and pure and very powerful. You walk the talk, and so that's all I have to say about that. Big love.
Thank you. Love you. Wow, I didn't dare to say that, I promise. I've just unmuted everyone else. If anyone has any other comments or questions. Julie Wardwell, are you there? Julie, can you hear me? I see your name, but I don't know if you're hearing me. But anyway, much love to you, and thank you for tuning in. Julie and I went to Ayurvedic college together, so just so happy to see you here, Julie. Well, if there's no other comments or questions or insights, then I think we're coming up to the top of the hour. Then I will bid you adieu. If anyone has any final things to say, then now's the moment to speak up and let your voice be heard. Otherwise, I will send you a follow-up email. I'll send the recording of this. Yeah, I did record it. Thank you. Thankfully. I'll send you a recording, and I'll also send you a link for the online program if you're interested in learning more about Ayurveda, and the link to the teacher training if you're interested in doing the Ayurvedic teacher training. So I appreciate all of you for being here and taking the time out of your life, and I really hope that we can meet in real time in person someday. And yeah, much love to you all. Namaste.
Thank you, Madhuri.
Thank you.